Okay guys, this starts our World War II unit, and I will go ahead and warn you now. A lot of the slides in this unit are a little longer than the ones that you've come to expect, so just know they're going to be a little longer, but based on the first question of the day of the year, over half of you, World War II was the one thing you were most interested in learning more about. So we're going to have a little more information to get through here. So this is our first slide called Aggressions+Rise. Before we can actually get into World War II, we got to kind of set the stage for it. And we will start that with the rise of dictators around the world, in Germany, Italy, Russia, Soviet Union rather, and Japan specifically. But we will refer to that as totalitarianism. Right? Our first little bullet there, totalitarianism. That is basically a form of government where we see one ruler who has total control, hence the totalitarianism. One ruler with total control. And in totalitarianism, the state or the government, the nation, the state is everything. The individual is nothing. So you matter absolutely nothing except for what you can contribute to the overall good of the state. Right? And we see these totalitarian dictators come to rise all over the world here, but specifically 4 of them that you're going to need to know. So let's go ahead and name them now. There are 3 you should know. One maybe a name you're unfamiliar with. But first of all, we see in Germany Adolf Hitler coming to power. And I'll spell these for you as we go along here. Hitler, Hitler. In Italy, we see Benito Mussolini, 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 Mussolini. In the Soviet Union, we have Joseph Stalin, Stalin, Joseph Stalin coming to power. And in Japan, we have an interesting little setup there. We have an emperor named Hirohito, 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 one word. The Hirohito is the emperor, but he's not really the guy in control. He is a ceremonial leader at best. The guy with the real control is the head of the military, a man named Hideki Tojo, T-O-J-O. He's a general. Hideki Tojo, T-O-J-O. And it's Tojo really is who is in power in Japan. So you got Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and Tojo coming to power around the world, taking over these countries, running them under total control, where the state is everything, the individual is nothing. Now, in 1936, we see an important, how do I say this? An important joining, I guess, of 2 countries when Italy and Germany will sign the Rome-Berlin Axis, and it pledges Italy and Germany to support each other, to defend each other. So if you'll think back to World War I, one of the causes was alliances, and we're going to see people picking and choosing sides here. So Italy and Germany will ally with one another, and here at the bottom of the page you see the pictures there in the middle. That's Hitler, and right beside him that is Mussolini. That picture is something later, but those are the 2. There you see Hitler, and there you see Mussolini. And they will sign the Rome-Berlin Axis. Now, while all these dictators are coming to power around the world, the official United States position is isolationism. The United States, since World War I, throughout the 20s and now into the 30s, the official position on world events has been isolationism, especially in Europe. Let Europe take care of Europe's problems. We've already got dragged into one war there. We don't want to get dragged into another one. So while all these dictators are coming to power around the world, the United States simply allows it to happen. And to guarantee that we're not going to get dragged into another war, the government passes a series of neutrality acts. We are determined to remain neutral through all of this picking and choosing sides here. And the Neutrality Acts of 1935, 36, and 37 do three very specific things that you're going to need to know. Okay? So let's talk about each of these. They're all geared toward keeping us out of European problems. But they do it very specifically. Okay? 1935, the Neutrality Act 35, says that the United States cannot sell weapons to a country at war. The U.S. cannot sell weapons to a country at war. One of the charges was that the reason we got into World War I, or allowed World War I to get going really, was that we were making a profit on it. And we did. We made a huge profit on World War I. And people are determined that big business is not going to get rich seeing Americans die here. So 35 says we cannot sell weapons to a country at war. The 1936 Act says that we cannot loan money to a country at war. Okay? The U.S. cannot loan money to a country at war. Okay? And finally, 1937, by the time 37 comes along, we see a lot of warfare getting going in Europe, and we've decided, okay, well, we'd like to stay out of it, but we would really like to make some money on it. So, 37 sort of is a compromise here. 37 says that the U.S. can sell to countries at war. We can sell goods, we can sell weapons, whatever. We can sell to a country at war, but, and here's the very important catch, but on a cash and carry basis. It's called cash and carry. The countries that we're selling to, they have to pay us cash. No more, well, we'll pay you later. We tend to not get paid when we do that. So cash and carry. They have to pay in cash for the goods, and they have to carry them. They have to come and get them, and they have to ship them back to their own countries. We're not going to deliver. Sinking of the Lusitania got us into World War I. We're determined that's not going to happen again. So we can trade with countries at war, but cash and carry. They have to pay cash, and they have to transport them. Okay? This is a good time to talk a little bit about here U.S. isolationist views and trying to stay neutral and all that. If you look at the top of the slide here, this political cartoon, specifically about U.S. isolationism, you probably recognize the drawing here. This is a cartoon by Dr. Seuss of, Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, Horton Hears a Who, all of that fame. Before he did all of those, Dr. Seuss, whose real name was Theodore Geisel, had very strong opinions about World War II. He believed that the U.S. should not be isolationist, that we should be involved, helping prevent World War II, or once it started, helping win World War II. So there you see his political cartoon sort of mocking U.S. isolationism. Get your ostrich bonnet here. Relieves Hitler headache. Forget the trouble, forget the terrible news you've read. Your mind's at ease in an ostrich head. So you buy your ostrich bonnet, stick your head in the sand, and pretend nothing's going on. It didn't work, okay, obviously. So Geisel has some, or Dr. Seuss, has some very hard opinions about World War II. Okay. All right, let's get back to our story. German militarization. Okay. If you'll recall, one of the conditions of the Treaty of Versailles after World War I was that Germany couldn't have military. Well, Hitler decides he's had enough of that. Once he comes to power, he announced that there will be mandatory military service for young men in Germany. They're going to have to serve in the military. And he starts rebuilding the German military. He builds an air force. He builds mechanized ground divisions, such as tanks. This is also when he starts and begins the extermination program of nearly 6 million Jews. So Hitler is going to rebuild the military. And to prove he can, if you'll notice on the map here, one of the things he does is he sends his new military into this area right here, known as the Rhineland. It's the border between France and Germany. And France was very nervous after World War I that Germany was going to invade again. So they create the Rhineland, as you see here in the key, that it says it is a demilitarized zone. Not supposed to be any military in there. Well, Hitler marches his military into the Rhineland. France gets very nervous, but the League of Nations does absolutely nothing about it. Okay. Well, Hitler continues to build and build and build his military, and he will meet at Munich, what's called the Munich Conference. Munich is a city here in southern Germany. And the leaders of the major European nations will get together, and that is this picture down here at the bottom left, to meet to figure out what to do about all of this. Hitler says, okay, look, there's only one more piece of land that I am interested in, and it is right here, this orange piece of land right there, known as the Sudeten land. The Sudetenland. Okay? It's the border with Czechoslovakia. Hitler says it's rightfully German. If you all will give me the Sudetenland, I will be done. I will make no more land claims, and Germany will be reunited. So, the leaders of Europe agree, and they sell out Czechoslovakia and hand over the Sudetenland to Hitler. Turns out, obviously, it's a lie. Hitler does not stop there. He will take over all of Czechoslovakia. But, for the moment, everybody breathes a sigh of relief, and everybody thinks, hooray, Hitler's done, and we're all safe. Okay? Particularly this man down here in the lower left-hand corner. Very important figure here. This is the British Prime Minister. Okay? His name is Neville Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain. 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 And Prime Minister Chamberlain goes home from Munich to the United Kingdom, to England, sets up a press conference and delivers that a famous quote. He says, "We have achieved peace in our time. Peace in our time." Except we hadn't. Everybody thought, good, Hitler's done, we're all saved. No, we're not. And especially based on what Hitler does next. He signs a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. Germany and the Soviet Union sign a non-aggression pact. They're not going to fight each other. Stalin and Hitler get together. Neither one completely trusts each other, but they agree they're not going to fight each other. Okay? They're not going to be allies. They're just not going to fight each other. Non-aggression. Okay? Now, it is very bad news for France, because with Germany not having to worry about the Soviet Union in the East, they can turn their entire attention to France in the West. Okay? Now, it's hard to see on this map here, but if the map were to continue, way over here would be the Soviet Union, and here's Germany. In between, this country right here, okay, this is Poland. Okay? And Hitler doesn't entirely trust Stalin. Stalin doesn't entirely trust Hitler. And they both believe they can't, that this peace isn't going to last. Eventually, one's going to attack the other. Hitler doesn't want the fighting to occur in Germany. Stalin doesn't want it to occur in the Soviet Union. So, where is the fighting going to occur? In Poland, right in between. Okay? In 1939, September 1939, Hitler will invade Poland. Stalin figures, well, I'm going to invade Poland too. And Poland gets divided. The eastern part falls under Soviet Union control. The western part falls under German control. So if they're going to end up fighting each other, they both agree, let's fight in Poland, not in our own home countries. When Hitler invades Poland in 1939, the war begins. Britain and France declare war on Germany. Germany and Italy are already allies, as we know. Will declare war on Britain and France, and everybody's picking and choosing sides. Meanwhile, in the United States, we're still trying to stay out of this mess. We passed one more Neutrality Act in 1939. This is the last one. And the Neutrality Act of 1939, President Roosevelt will declare that Americans and American ships can no longer sail to Europe. We're not going to Europe. We're not sailing to any port of any country at war, and basically that's all of Europe. So Americans cannot travel there. We cannot send materials there. This is a last-ditch effort to keep America out of the war and keep Americans from getting killed. Okay? Now we enter what's known as the phony war. This is several months long. After Germany has invaded Poland and everybody has declared war on everybody else, nobody does any fighting. There's about a 3-4 month period or so where nobody fights anybody. Everybody, though, is getting ready for the fighting. For several months, all these countries just start moving their pieces around the chessboard. They're maneuvering their armies to where they want them, trying to outflank one another. So the first few months of actual war being declared in World War II, there's no fighting. Okay? It's everybody getting ready to fight. So it's everybody moving their pieces around. Okay? Much like they did in World War I, Germany's going to do something real interesting here at the beginning of the actual fighting. Okay? They're going to send their armies not directly at France. Right? Instead, just like they did in World War I, they're going to take their armies through Belgium and come up around behind the French, capturing them in the middle, and within a period of several months, France is taken out of the war entirely. Okay. Now, let me get rid of my arrows there, because I'm going to need that space. All right. We have one more big sort of battle here, the first real fighting here, that we need to talk about. And it takes place at Dunkirk. Okay? That's the English spelling. It's a French village. But it is, let me draw a little circle here for you. Dunkirk is right about there, on the north coast of France, on the English Channel. Okay? That is Dunkirk. The British Army has been in France fighting the Germans. Okay? And they have withdrawn into the coastal town of Dunkirk. And they've withdrawn about as far as they can go. They can't go any further. They're standing on the beaches, literally. Germany has the town surrounded, and the bulk of the British Army is trapped. Okay? Almost 400,000 British soldiers fighting in France have withdrawn to Dunkirk, and they're waiting to be ferried across the British Channel to safety. But they can't get out. Right? The Germans have surrounded the town, threatening to wipe out the entire British Army and effectively end the war. Right? Hitler has sent in his military air force in light numbers. They go on strafing runs. They shoot with machine guns, but they never full out attack, and nobody's sure why. This is the first of the huge, giant mistakes that Hitler will make in this war. he should have wiped out the British at Dunkirk, but he doesn't. And the British will start with something called Operation Dynamo. And Operation Dynamo will evacuate 338,000 British soldiers. Some French, some Belgian, mainly British though. 338,000 British soldiers are evacuated from Dunkirk. Basically, they send in anything that will float. Churchill puts out a plea for anyone with boats to help. So they end up with yachts, tugboats, fishing boats, rowboats, you name it. If it will float, they send it to the beaches at Dunkirk. They load up soldiers, and they take these little boats, as they're called, offshore and load these men onto naval vessels. But it is a deadly trip from the naval ship to shore, back and forth. These little boats are under constant attack by German aircraft. But they make it. 338,000 soldiers escape. It's called the Miracle at Dunkirk. And it is a huge mistake by Hitler not to wipe out the British army when he had a chance. Okay? Last thing here, America awakes. The United States realizes that it's not going to be able to stay out of this war forever. We're going to have to get involved. France has been wiped out. The only thing standing between Hitler and the entire continent of Europe is Great Britain, and they're going to need help. So America realizes we're going to have to get in this war. So Congress passes America's first peacetime draft, authorizing Congress to rebuild our military. Over 1 million soldiers a year will be drafted. And it's the first time we've had a draft in peacetime. Because remember, we're not technically at war yet. But we realize we're going to have to get there. Okay? So, I know it was a long slide, but there's a lot of information there. That is good news, though. That is the longest slide of this unit. So, they will get shorter from here on out. But that sort of sets the stage for America kind of getting into the war here.